Earthquakes taking place today could be echoes of powerful earthquakes that took place centuries ago. North America may still be trembling with the aftershocks of two major earthquakes that struck the continent more than a century ago, according to new research. If a statistical inference of that scientists made are correct, then that means that some tremors of today were set in motion way back in the 1800s after some of the most powerful earthquakes in the continent's recorded history. In fact, the study authors estimate that around 23% to 30% of the seismic shocks experienced in the New Madrid seismic zone between 1980 and 2016 were aftershocks of the four large earthquakes that struck in the area 1811 and 1812, with magnitudes between 7.2 and 8 magnitude. What's more, another larger quake with magnitude 6.7 to 7.3, which hit Charleston, South Carolina in 1886, could explain up to 72% of the seismic shocks experienced in the region since. The findings hint at the possibility that within geological stable areas of continents, where there is not a lot of tectonic activity, some earthquake aftershocks can continue uninterrupted for decades or even centuries, although far more research is needed before that controversial idea can be validated. Some scientists suppose that contemporary seismicity in parts of stable North America are aftershocks, and other scientists think it's mostly background seismicity, says geoscientist Yuxian Chen from the Wuhan University in China. Using a different statistical method than previous researchers, Chen, together with geologist Mian Liu from University of Missouri, analyzed the three biggest earthquake events in North American history. They occurred in 1663 in Canada's southeastern Quebec. Another struck on the Missouri-Kentucky border starting 1811, and the last quake hit South Carolina in 1886. All three of these areas are tucked in the continental interior, away from the borders of tectonic plates, and yet they continue to experience clusters of temporary tremors. Modeling is seismic ripples that would have emanated from the three largest historic shocks. Chen and Liu mapped epicenters of around 250 kilometers, that's 155 miles. They then looked at earthquakes that struck near these epicenters in the following decades, including clear shocks above magnitude 2.5. To figure out how these older and newer quakes were related, the researchers applied the nearest neighbor method to their data, and under this statistical method of earthquakes are too close in space-time and magnitude to be considered independent background events, then one is assumed to have triggered the other. And depending on the size and location of the main shock in New Madrid, which is somewhat uncertain, Chen and Liu estimate between 10 and 65% of the region's contemporary quakes are likely aftershocks, although the reality is probably towards the lower end of that estimate. Similar results were found for North Carolina, but in Quebec, the authors found predominantly background seismicity. This indicates that the aftershocks of the Quebec earthquake, which had a magnitude of 6.5 to 7.5, have disappeared, which was a big earthquake, obviously, in Quebec, 7.5 magnitude, can you imagine? The mixture of long-lived aftershocks and background seismicity may be common in stable continents, Liu and Chen suggest. The two researchers think that the long post-seismic stress relaxation of stable continents could contribute to long aftershock sequences. Ultimately, they think the debate over whether North America's contemporary quakes are background noise or aftershocks is oversimplified. The explanations don't have to be mutually exclusive. And this is it's kind of a mixture, Chen says. Susan Ho, the geophysicist with the United States Geological Survey, who was not involved in the current study, says that it's possible for apparent aftershocks to deceive. In some respects, the earthquakes look like aftershocks if you look at the spatial distribution, but earthquakes could be tightly clustered for a couple of reasons, she says. One is that they're aftershocks, but also you could have a process of a creep going on that's not part of an aftershock process. Exactly what the results mean is still open to question. And the turbulent debate continues. This study was first published in Journal of Geophysical Research, Solid Earth, and it's on Science Alert by Carly Casella. Let's remember also that the Earth grows at the speed of a fingernail, as much as a human fingernail grows each year. So our Earth is growing and expanding. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.